Welcome to Walking Through the Book of Genesis. Today we would usually be on chapter 9 of Genesis, but because today is Resurrection Sunday, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to offer you the reading um, that I heard once when I was at the United Methodist Theological Seminary. We used to have chapel on Friday mornings, and the person who was officiating chapel called on a young lady, and she read this poem, and this was been decades ago, but it stuck with me. It's entitled "The Ragman." It's by Walter Wangerin Jr. I hope you'll enjoy it. Now, next Sunday we will resume our walk through the book of Genesis, chapter 9, and you can find it on Podbeam. You can find it on, I believe, Spotify. You can find it on YouTube. YouTube is the easiest place to find it. Just go to Ruel Barksdale and you will find our Walking Through the Book of Genesis theories. You will also see our Bible study on Facebook. It's on LinkedIn. I've tried to put it as on as many platforms as possible. Please join us. I think it will be a blessing to you. The book of Genesis is so important to understand because it is in fact the book of beginnings. And I believe if you really want to understand anything, sometimes you have to go to the beginning of the thing to truly understand it. So again, walking through the book of Genesis, we will resume rather our study next Sunday with chapter 9, Genesis. So join us if you would. Just and you can if you can't join us on a particular day or time, that's fine. Because again, it is on all of those platforms. All right, today we're going to look at again the Ragman. I saw a strange sight. I stumbled upon a story most strange, like nothing my life, my street sense, my sly tongue had ever prepared me for. Hush, hush, child, I'll tell it to you. Even before the dawn one Friday morning, I noticed a young man, handsome and strong, walking the alleys of our city. He was pulling an old cart. The cart was full of clothes, both bright and new, and he was calling in a clear tenor voice, "Rags!" Oh, the air was foul, and the first light filthy to be crossed by such sweet music. Rags, new rags for old. I take your tired rags, rags. Now this was a wonder, I thought to myself. For this man stood 6 feet 4, and his arms were like tree limbs, hard and muscular, and his eyes flashed intelligence. Could he find no better job than this, to be a rag man in the inner city? I followed him. My curiosity drove me, and I wasn't disappointed. Soon the ragman saw a woman sitting on her back porch. She was sobbing into a handkerchief, sighing and shedding 1,000 tears. Her knees and elbows made a sad X. Her shoulders shook. Her heart was obviously breaking. The ragman stopped his cart. Quietly, he walked up to the woman, stepping round tin cans, dead toys, and pampers. "Give me your rag," he said so gently, "and I'll give you another." He slipped the handkerchief from her eyes. She looked up, and he laid across her palm a linen cloth so new and clean that it shined. She blinked. From the gift to the giver. Then, as he pulled his cart away, the ragman did a strange thing. He put her stained handkerchief to his own face, and then he began to weep, to sob as grievously as she had done, his shoulders shaking, yet she was left without a tear. This is a wonder, I breathed to myself, and I followed the sobbing ragman like a child who cannot turn away from a mystery. Rags, rags, new rags for old. In a little while when the sky showed gray behind the rooftops and I could see the shredded curtains hanging out black windows, the ragman came upon a girl whose head was wrapped in a bandage, whose eyes were empty. Blood soaked her bandage. A single line of blood ran down her cheek. Now the tall ragman looked upon this child with pity, and he drew a lovely yellow bonnet from his cart. "Give me your rag," he said, tracing his own line on her cheek, "and I'll give you mine." The child could only gaze at him while he loosened the bandage, removed it, and tied it to his own head. The bonnet he set on hers, and I gasped at what I saw, for with the bandage went the wound. Against his brow it ran a darker, more substantial blood, his own. "Rags, Rags, I take old Rags," cried the sobbing, bleeding, strong, intelligent ragman. The sun hurt both the sky now and my eyes. The ragman seemed more and more to hurry. "Are you going to work?" he asked a man who leaned against a telephone pole. The man shook his head. The ragman pressed him. "Do you have a job?" "Are you crazy?" sneered the other. He pulled away from the pole, revealing the right sleeve of his jacket, flat, the cuff stuffed into the pocket. He had no arm. "So," said the ragman, "give me your jacket, and I'll give you mine." Such quiet authority in his voice. The one-armed man took off his jacket. So did the ragman, and I trembled at what I saw, for the ragman's arm stayed in its sleeve, and when the other put it on, now he had two good arms, thick as tree limbs, but the ragman only had one. "Go to work," he said. After that he found a drunk, lying unconscious beneath an army blanket, an old man, hunched, wizened, and sick. He took that blanket and wrapped it around himself, but for the drunk he left new clothes. And now I had to run to keep up with the ragman, though he was weeping uncontrollably and bleeding freely at the forehead, pulling his cart with one arm, stumbling for drunkenness, falling again and again, exhausted, old, and sick. Yet he went with terrible speed. On spider's legs he skittered through the alleys of the city, this mile and the next, until he came to its limits, and there he rushed beyond. I wept to see the change in this man. I hurt to see his sorrow. And yet I needed to see where he was going in such haste. Perhaps to know what drove him. The old ragman, he came to a landfill. He came to the garbage pits. And I wanted to help him in what he did, but I hung back, hiding. He climbed a hill. With tormented labor, he cleared a little space on that hill. Then he sighed. He lay down. He pillowed his head on a handkerchief and a jacket. He covered his bones with an army blanket. And he died. Oh, how I cried to witness that death. I slumped in a junk car and wailed and mourned as one who has no hope, because I had come to love the ragman. Every other face had faded in the wonder of this man, and I cherished him, but he died. I sobbed myself to sleep. I did not know. How could I know that I slept through Friday night and Saturday and its night too? But then on Sunday morning, I was awakened by a violence. Light, pure, hard, demanding light slammed against my sour face, and I blinked And I looked, and I saw the last and the first wonder of all. There was the ragman folding the blanket most carefully, a scar on his forehead, but he was alive. And besides that, he was healthy. There was no sign of sorrow nor of age, and all the rags that he had gathered shined for cleanliness. Well, then I lowered my head, and trembling for what I had seen, I myself walked up to the ragman. I told him my name with shame, for I was a sorry figure next to him. Then I took off all my clothes in that place, and I said to him with yearning in my voice, "Dress me." He dressed me. My Lord, he put new rags on me, and I am a wonder beside him. The ragman, the ragman.